Rain drummed softly on the glass, each drop echoing like a ticking clock in the silence of the small suburban house. Maya sat on the couch, her face pale, eyes fixed on the framed wedding photo that hung crooked on the wall. The once bright smile in that picture now felt like a cruel joke, a frozen memory of a love that had long rotted beneath the weight of secrets. Her husband, Daniel, had grown distant over the past few months. At first, it was the late nights, then the hushed phone calls, and finally, the way he looked at her, not with love, but with a hollow impatience that stung like frostbite. She had tried to talk to him, to reach him, but his responses were curt, mechanical. Something in his eyes told her he was planning something. That evening, Daniel came home early, which was unusual. His face was unreadable, his tone oddly calm as he told her they needed to talk. Maya's heart raced. Something about his voice sent a shiver through her bones. The twins, Leo and Lily, were in their room playing with their blocks, their innocent laughter cutting through the tension like sunlight through storm clouds. "Maya," he began, his eyes darting away from hers. "I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving." Her breath caught. "Leaving? What do you mean?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took a small envelope from his jacket pocket and placed it on the coffee table. Inside were a set of documents, divorce papers. But what chilled her wasn't the papers. It was the bank statement attached to them. Her name was gone. Every joint account had been cleared, every asset transferred. "You took everything?" she whispered, her voice trembling. He didn't deny it. "You'll be fine, Maya. You always find a way. I have to start over, with someone else." Her heart seemed to stop. The room spun. She clutched the edge of the couch as her vision blurred. "Someone else?" she repeated, almost in disbelief. Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's been over for a long time. I just didn't know how to tell you. She's pregnant." The world went silent. The rain outside seemed to fade. All she could hear was her heartbeat, rapid, frantic, breaking. Her body swayed. Her knees buckled, and before Daniel could react, she collapsed onto the cold wooden floor. "Mommy!" Leo's voice echoed from the hallway, followed by the tiny patter of feet. Lily's cries pierced the air as Daniel froze, his face pale with shock. He crouched beside Maya, but she was unresponsive. Her chest rose faintly, her lips ghostly pale. He panicked, but instead of calling for help, he hesitated. His phone buzzed on the table, a message from the other woman. And for one dark, cowardly second, he thought about leaving, about walking away from the wreckage he had caused. But before he could decide, the twins, small, trembling, crying, toddled toward their unconscious mother. Leo, with his little hands shaking, grabbed the phone that had fallen from Daniel's grip. He didn't understand numbers or names, but he remembered something Maya had taught him months ago. If Mommy ever falls or can't talk, press this button and call. He pressed randomly, and by some miracle, the number connected. A woman's voice answered, confused. "Hello? Who is this?" Leo's sobs filled the line. "Mommy sleep? Mommy not wake up." The woman, realizing this was a child, softened her tone immediately. "Sweetheart, where's your mommy? Can you tell me your house number? What's your name?" Leo sniffled. "I'm Leo." Mommy's on floor. "Daddy?" Daddy made her cry. The woman froze. "Where's Daddy now?" But before the boy could answer, Daniel snatched the phone, his hand shaking. "Who is this?" The voice on the other end didn't hesitate. "I'm Detective Karen Holt. You just called a police emergency line. Who am I speaking to?" Daniel's face drained of color. It was pure coincidence. The random number Leo had dialed belonged to a police detective's private line. He stammered. It's a misunderstanding." But before he could finish, Karen's tone sharpened. "Sir, I heard a child crying. What's happening in that house?" Daniel hung up instantly. His heart pounded. He looked at Maya, at the twins clinging to her, and panic set in. If the police traced the call, everything would unravel. He rushed to grab his keys, muttering to himself. But in that moment, Leo, terrified and confused, picked up the phone again and pressed the same button. This time, Karen's voice came back clearer, and she could hear everything. Daniel shouting, the children crying, and the faint sound of Maya's shallow breathing. Karen didn't waste a second. Within minutes, patrol units were dispatched to the address connected to the signal. Daniel realized too late. As the sound of sirens approached in the distance, he looked around desperately, but it was over. The blue and red lights flashed through the windows, bouncing off the rain-slicked walls like judgment itself. He stood frozen as officers burst through the front door. The twins screamed, clinging to each other as one of the officers lifted them to safety. Maya was rushed to the hospital, her pulse faint but alive. Hours later, as dawn broke, the rain finally stopped. The house stood silent, eerily peaceful. Daniel sat in handcuffs, his head bowed, the weight of his actions sinking in. He hadn't meant for it to go this far, or maybe, deep down, he had. At the hospital, Maya stirred. The beeping of machines filled her ears as light filtered through the blinds. Her throat was dry, her body weak, but the first thing she saw were her twins, curled up beside her hospital bed, fast asleep. A nurse stood quietly nearby, a faint smile on her lips. "You're lucky, Mrs. Rivers," the nurse whispered. "Your little heroes save your life." Maya blinked, tears welling in her eyes as fragments of memory returned. The argument, the collapse, the sound of Leo's frightened voice. She reached out, touching their small hands, her heart breaking and healing at the same time. Detective Karen entered the room soon after, holding her notepad. "Mrs. Rivers," she said gently, "I know this is hard, but I need to ask you some questions about what happened last night." Maya's lips trembled as she nodded. "He left me," she whispered. "Took everything. I didn't even have the strength to fight." Karen's gaze softened. "You don't have to anymore. You're safe now. And your children, they're the reason you're alive." Maya looked at the twins again, her chest tightening with gratitude and sorrow. She didn't know what the future held, how she'd rebuild, how she'd survive. But one thing was certain. The innocence of her children had pierced through the darkness Daniel left behind. As she lay there, holding their tiny hands, she realized something profound. Sometimes the smallest voices can summon the greatest miracles. Outside the hospital window, the sky began to glow with the first hues of morning, a soft promise that even after the darkest night, light always finds a way back. And far away, in a cold interrogation room, Daniel's hands trembled as he whispered to the officer, "It was just supposed to be a new beginning." The officer stared at him, unblinking. "It was," he said quietly, "just not the one you planned." But fate was not done yet, because what happened next, days later, would shock even those who thought they'd seen it all. 3 days later, the whispers around the hospital had not yet settled. Nurses spoke in hushed tones about the woman who had survived betrayal, collapse, and death itself. Maya remained in recovery, though her mind drifted between fragments of nightmare and faint hope. Every time she opened her eyes, she looked for her twins, and every time she found them curled beside her, her heart steadied again. Detective Karen visited daily, bringing quiet reassurance. There was something about the detective's presence, calm but piercing, that made Maya feel safe. On the third morning, Karen entered holding a small folder, her brow furrowed. "Maya," she began softly, "we've been reviewing your husband's accounts and communications. There's something you need to know." Maya's hands trembled slightly as she adjusted herself upright. "What is it?" Karen sighed, placing the folder on the bedside table. "It appears Daniel had been planning this for months. He transferred every asset, not just the money in your joint account, but also the deed to the house. He was preparing to disappear." Maya's eyes widened. "Disappear? With her?" Karen nodded slowly. "Yes, the woman he mentioned. She's currently being questioned, but there's more. We found a message draft in his phone, one he never sent. It looks like he was planning to leave the country. Alone." A deep chill crawled down Maya's spine. "Alone," she whispered. Karen met her eyes. He was planning to abandon her too, after taking her savings. You weren't the only one he deceived. For a long moment, the only sound was the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor. Maya stared at her hands, pale and frail, and felt something strange stir inside her, not hatred, not grief, but an eerie calm. He had not just broken her trust. He had shattered the illusion she had built her life upon. "Where is he now?" she asked finally. "In custody," Karen replied. "But he's trying to negotiate a deal. Claims it was all a misunderstanding, that you fainted because of stress, not because of what he did. He's pretending to be the victim." Maya let out a dry laugh. Quiet, bitter. "Of course he is. He always finds a way to twist things." Karen studied her for a moment. "Would you testify when it's time?" Maya looked toward the window, where sunlight broke through thin clouds, casting long streaks of gold across the bed. "Yes," she said quietly. "Not just for me, for my children." Later that day, when the twins woke, they ran to her side, giggling as if the world had never darkened. Their laughter was a sound of healing, pure and unbroken. Leo proudly told her about how he called the lady who helped, and Lily chimed in, "We were brave, Mommy." Maya hugged them close, tears streaming silently. "You saved me," she whispered. "Both of you." The hospital staff adored the twins. They were like little beacons of joy walking the hallways, waving at nurses and offering shy smiles. But that night, as they fell asleep on her hospital bed, Maya overheard something that made her heart skip. Two nurses outside were discussing Daniel's case. "Did you hear? He's not talking now. He's requested someone from outside the city. His brother, I think." "Brother?" the other nurse asked. "Yeah, apparently some big business guy. He's been trying to pull strings to get Daniel released on bail." Maya's chest tightened. Daniel's brother, Victor. She hadn't seen him in years, but his presence always brought unease. He was sharp, manipulative, and dangerous in a quieter way. The kind of man who never raised his voice, but always got what he wanted. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. The room felt colder, the shadows longer. She watched the twins breathe softly beside her, their small bodies rising and falling under the blanket, and fear crept back in. What if Victor managed to get Daniel out? What if they tried to take the twins? The next morning, her fears weren't unfounded. Detective Karen returned with tension etched across her face. "Maya," she said grimly, "Daniel's brother just posted bail. He's free for now, under restrictions, but still free." Maya's stomach dropped. "What does that mean?" "It means," Karen said carefully, "he can't approach you or the children, but I've seen men like him. He might try to contact you indirectly." Maya's heart pounded. "He won't stop, will he?" Karen didn't answer immediately. "We'll keep an eye on him. And I'm assigning an officer outside your house when you're discharged. You'll be safe." But deep down, Maya knew safety was a fragile illusion. 2 weeks later, she returned home. The house felt different, colder, emptier, stripped of warmth. Most of Daniel's belongings were gone, but his scent lingered faintly in the walls, haunting her like a ghost that refused to leave. The twins settled in quickly, unaware of the dangers circling just beyond their mother's fragile calm. Maya tried to rebuild routine, breakfast, playtime, bedtime stories, but at night she caught herself staring at the door, listening for footsteps. One evening, just as she was tucking the twins into bed, the phone rang. She hesitated. Unknown number. Her pulse raced. "Maya Rivers?" A smooth, cold voice asked when she answered. Her throat tightened. "Who is this?" "Victor," the voice said. "We need to talk." She gripped the phone harder, her knuckles white. "There's nothing left to talk about." "You're mistaken," Victor said calmly. "You're part of this whether you like it or not. Daniel made mistakes, yes, but we can fix them for everyone's benefit." "Fix them?" Maya repeated, trembling. "You think you can fix what he did by calling me? He tried to destroy me." Victor's tone darkened. "Be careful, Maya. You have children. It's not wise to make enemies right now." The line went dead. Maya stood frozen, her breath shallow. The threat was subtle, but it burned with venom. She called Karen immediately, explaining every word. Within an hour, police patrols were assigned to her street again, and Victor was issued a warning. But Maya knew men like him didn't scare easily. That night, she sat by the twins' bedside, watching them sleep, when she noticed something strange. A small shadow moved outside the window, quick, fleeting. Her heart stopped. She rushed to the window, pulled the curtain aside, but there was nothing, only the rustling of leaves under the streetlight. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been there. The next morning, Karen arrived unannounced. "We found something," she said, holding a small black object in her hand, a GPS tracker. "It was under your car." Maya's blood ran cold. Karen continued, "We believe Victor or one of his men planted it. He's been monitoring your movements." Fear twisted inside her chest. What does he want? Karen looked grim. Money, control, maybe even revenge. But we'll stop him, I promise. That night, as rain began to fall again, Maya sat on the couch with her twins, reading them a story. The storm outside was fierce, wind rattling the windows, thunder rolling across the dark sky. The twins clung to her arms, their tiny faces half asleep. And then, a soft knock at the door. It wasn't loud. It wasn't frantic. Just 3 slow, deliberate knocks that echoed through the house. Maya froze. Her pulse quickened. The twins stirred. The knocking came again, followed by silence. She grabbed her phone with shaking hands and dialed Karen's number. Before the call connected, a man's voice drifted through the door, calm, chilling, unmistakable. "Maya," the voice said softly, "we need to finish our conversation." The rain outside grew heavier, hammering the roof like 1,000 restless fingers. The wind howled through the cracks, carrying with it the cold breath of something ominous. Maya stood frozen by the door, her phone still trembling in her hand. The voice on the other side was unmistakable. Victor. Calm. Controlled. Deadly. "Maya," he repeated softly, almost coaxing. "Open the door. I don't want to make this difficult." Her heart pounded so violently she thought it might burst. The twins were upstairs, sleeping, or she hoped they still were. She took one cautious step backward, her eyes darting to the windows. Every instinct screamed danger. "What do you want?" she called out, her voice trembling. "You already know," Victor replied. "Daniel made mistakes, but you have something that belongs to us." "I have nothing," she shouted, clutching the phone tighter. "He took everything from me, money, house, peace. What more could you possibly want?" For a moment, there was silence. Then, Victor's tone dropped lower, colder. "The bank account Daniel never told you about. Offshore. It's in your name, Maya. You were the insurance plan. Now we need access to it." Maya's breath caught. She had no idea what he was talking about. But deep down, something clicked. The papers Daniel had once asked her to sign for the mortgage. She hadn't thought much of it then. Her signature must have given her ownership of something far bigger, something dangerous. "I don't have access to any account," she said shakily. "Then find a way," Victor's voice hissed. "You have until tomorrow, or I come back." And just like that, the shadow outside vanished. The sound of footsteps faded into the storm. Maya stood there for a long time, frozen, until the phone slipped from her hand. The screen still glowed faintly, Detective Karen's number flashing from the missed call she hadn't noticed in panic. She dialed back immediately, whispering every word of what had just happened. Within minutes, Karen promised to send officers to guard the house overnight. But Victor didn't return that night, nor the next. Instead, strange things began happening. Calls from unknown numbers, a black car parked near the house, the sound of doors creaking when no one was there. Fear became a living thing in the house, a quiet predator that watched her every move. Then one morning, an email arrived. No name, no sender, just a single line. Asterisk. If you want your children safe, come alone to the old warehouse by the docks. Midnight. Asterisk. She printed the message and handed it to Karen, who frowned deeply. He's baiting you, Karen said. He knows we're watching. He's trying to draw you out. Maya's hands trembled as she whispered, He mentioned my children, Karen. What if... Karen interrupted gently. We'll handle this, but we'll need your help. And that's when the plan formed. That night, under the pale glow of a broken moon, Maya drove to the docks. The air was damp and heavy with the scent of rust and salt. In the distance, the old warehouse loomed, a skeletal structure of iron and shadow. Her headlights cut through the mist, revealing faint footprints in the mud. She parked, took a deep breath, and stepped out. Her knees threatened to buckle, but she steadied herself. Every step echoed through the hollow silence, each one louder than the last. "Maya!" Victor's voice called from the darkness, smooth and deliberate. He emerged from the shadows, wearing a dark coat, his face half lit by the flickering light of a lone bulb overhead. "You came," he said, smiling faintly. "I knew you would. A mother always does." "Where are my children?" Maya demanded, her voice trembling but fierce. "Safe," Victor said. "For now." He gestured toward a small table. On it lay a laptop. "Log in. Transfer the funds. Then this ends." Maya hesitated, her mind racing. But she remembered Karen's words. Asterisk, keep him talking. Stall if you can. We'll be listening. Asterisk. She approached slowly, pretending to type. "What if I don't know the account?" Victor's smile faltered slightly. "Then you'd better remember fast." He pulled out a gun, its cold metal glinting under the dim light. "Because I don't have patience for games." Maya's heart thundered in her chest. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling. But then, from somewhere behind Victor, a faint sound, a soft crunch of footsteps on gravel. He turned sharply, eyes narrowing. What was that? Before he could react further, a voice echoed from the darkness. "Police, drop your weapon." Victor spun, firing once into shadows. The gunshot split the air like thunder, the bullet sparking off the metal beam. In that instant, chaos erupted. Officers stormed in, their flashlights slicing through the gloom. Victor grabbed Maya, pulling her close, his arm like iron across her throat. "Nobody moves," he shouted. "She dies, I swear it." "Maya, stay calm." Karen's voice called out from behind a stack of crates. Victor dragged her backward toward the docks. "You think you can stop me? You think she can stop me?" He laughed, the sound unhinged. "I built everything you see, Daniel's empire, his power. I made him, and I can end all of it just as easily." Maya's voice was low but steady. "Then why are you hiding behind me?" The words hit him like a slap. His grip faltered just for a second, but it was enough. Karen moved. A single, precise shot rang out. The gun flew from Victor's hand, clattering onto the concrete. Officers rushed in, pinning him to ground as he screamed in fury, his voice echoing across the empty docks. Maya collapsed to her knees, trembling, gasping for breath. Karen rushed to her side. "It's over," she whispered, gripping her shoulder. "You're safe now." But Maya's mind was elsewhere. "My children," she whispered. "Where are my babies?" Karen smiled faintly. "At the station. My team picked them up an hour ago. They're waiting for you." Maya's knees gave out completely as tears streamed down her face. For the first time in what felt like forever, the fear melted away. Later that night, as she held her twins in her arms at the police station, they clung to her tightly, their small faces buried against her chest. The world outside could crumble, but in that moment, she had everything she needed. Over the next few weeks, Victor and Daniel's empire unraveled piece by piece. Their secret accounts were frozen, their property seized. Daniel, caught in his brother's web of lies, confessed to crimes even he hadn't realized he was part of. He was sentenced to years in prison. Victor, facing far darker charges, would never see freedom again. Maya stood in court during the final hearing, her posture straight, her eyes steady. When the judge declared their guilt, she felt something lift from her chest. Not joy, not vengeance, but release. Outside, the world was different. The same city that once suffocated her now seemed vast and open. She began rebuilding her life from the ashes, brick by brick. Karen became more than a detective. She became a friend, a quiet guardian who visited often, bringing laughter into the house again. Months passed. The house that once held ghosts now echoed with the twins' laughter, their drawings covering the fridge, their tiny shoes by the door. One morning, Maya stood by the window watching them chase butterflies in the garden, sunlight glinting off their hair, and realized how far she'd come. She was no longer the woman who had collapsed in despair. She was a woman who had risen from it, stronger, wiser, unbreakable. And yet, the story didn't end there. One afternoon, as she was sorting through old boxes, she found a sealed envelope at the bottom of a drawer, one she didn't remember ever seeing. It was addressed to her in Daniel's handwriting. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a single note. Maya, if you're reading this, then everything has fallen apart. I don't expect forgiveness, but you should know the offshore account wasn't mine. It was yours, your inheritance from your parents. Victor made me transfer it to protect it from him. He planned to take it all, and I was too weak to stop him. I'm sorry. Her breath caught. For a long moment, she couldn't move. Karen arrived an hour later after Maya called her. The detective read the letter carefully and looked up, her eyes soft but sharp. It means, she said quietly, you own everything he tried to steal. The irony was almost poetic. The very account Victor hunted for, the one that nearly cost her life, was never his to claim. Weeks later, standing before the same house that once symbolized her pain, Maya signed papers transferring the hidden fortune into a trust fund for her children's future. She didn't need revenge, wealth, or status. What she wanted was peace. And peace, at last, was hers. The night the final storm cleared, she took Leo and Lily out onto the porch. The air was crisp, the moon silver against the sky scrubbed clean. The twins looked up at her and asked, Mommy, are we safe now? She knelt down, cupping their tiny faces in her hands. Yes, she whispered, smiling through tears. We're safe, because brave hearts like yours can't be broken. The children giggled and hugged her tight, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Maya allowed herself to breathe. Far away, behind cold prison bars, Daniel sat in silence, staring at a photo of his family. For the first time, he saw what he had destroyed and what he could never reclaim. Meanwhile, Victor, stripped of power and pride, sat in another cell, his name erased from the empire he once ruled through fear. And somewhere between their downfall and her rise, a quiet truth settled over everything. Sometimes, life's greatest tragedies aren't endings at all. They're awakenings. For Maya, the collapse that once marked her destruction became the moment she was reborn, not as a victim, but as a living proof that even after betrayal, fear, and loss, love, courage, and hope can still rise from her ruins. And as dawn broke over the quiet street, her laughter mingled with her children's, soft and free, a melody the universe itself seemed to echo, whispering that some storms don't come to destroy you. They come to cleanse you, so you can finally see the light. You said,